Well, Mother's Day, Jeff and I were talking before the service. Mother's Day is always one of the hardest days of the year to be a pastor. And the reason is we have so many wonderful mothers that we want to celebrate. And that's important. And I have seen some great moms in my life. I feel like my mom was a great, great mom, and she's still doing well. And I'll have lunch with her this afternoon. I'm excited about that. And my sister's a great mom, and my wife is a great mom, and my mother-in-law is a great mom, and my stepdaughter's a great mom, and my daughters-in-law are great moms. And we have some excellent moms at the village, not only young moms that we see chasing your toddlers all over the place, but also older moms at the village. Lois Martin has always been like a mom to me. She says to me, one time I told her I hadn't talked to my mom in a week or two, and that set off every week her finding me immediately after the service and asking me if I had talked to my mom that week. And it's like, okay, I got it, Lois, I got it, but she wants to make sure that I do that. I don't think I appreciated moms as much. I know I didn't. I was not a good young husband when I had young boys. I was not attentive. I was very much locked into being a pastor, and I was a young person, but no excuse. And I didn't realize how hard it is to do what you do. I did not realize any of that until I became a granddad. And then I tried for Jane never to get out of my sight when I've got the kids, because it's like, no, honey, don't leave me here. Please don't leave me here. I don't know what to do. But every once in a while I'm there with them, and it's like, whoo, y'all do a lot of stuff. Y'all do a lot of stuff. Milton Berle was right, the old comedian. He said, if evolution really worked, mothers would have more than two hands. Isn't that true? If evolution were true in the strongest sense, mothers would have 3 or 4 hands for sure. So while we want to celebrate you moms, and it is important that you know that we honor you and love you and appreciate you, I also know, and Jeff and I talked about this, that this is also one of the sadder days of the year for many. Some say, I never had a mom my whole life, never. She was absent from me. So when you hear Mother's Day, it's like, yeah, great, I got a bum deal on that. Or some say, but my mom died, and that is heart-wrenching. I know some of my friends, their moms have passed and they're in their 50s, and it's heart-wrenching. I can't imagine what it's like when a mom passes and someone is young. That has to be one of the toughest things in the world. And I know that this day is a churned up emotional day for you, and I get it, and God gets it, and you are loved, and it's okay. It's okay. Some have experienced the loss of a child, and Mother's Day just churns in them. I can't imagine what that must feel like, but perhaps you are here, and I know that has to be so difficult. Some look at their parenting and they say, you know what? I think I did an okay job, but I have no relationship with my kids. And that would be tough. That would be one of the tougher things in this world, I would think, to experience. Or some say, you know what? I was a lousy parent. And I am right now with no relationship with my kids, and it's because of the screwed up ways that I did things. If I could say a word to you, I would say, stop beating yourself up. There's nothing you can do about what happened in the past. There's nothing you can do about that. I've always liked the Maya Angelou quote when she said, I did the best I knew how to do. And when I knew better, I did better. And so for some of you, let that be words of comfort. When you knew better, you did better. What I want to do, though, is, having said all of that, is I want to share a message that I think will have application to everyone. It'll have application to you if you're a mom. It'll have application if you're not a mom. The lesson has to do with what are the main lessons we need to embrace in this life. Maybe you're a parent and you can pass these to your children. Maybe you're not a parent, but these will be things that we all need to embrace. And for many, you won't get this until you're maybe in the second half of life. I think some things just don't really crystallize for us until we are in the second half of life. And you young people, we're so envious of you because you are young and you have so much energy and so much of everything that we desire and we wish. But for many of you young folks, these things will stick in your mind, but you maybe won't get them or begin to get them until you get a little bit older. At least that's been my experience. I see parents who pride themselves on what they teach their kids, and obviously there's so much that needs to be taught to kids. Life skills, that's so important. How how to look someone in the eye when you talk to them, how to have manners, how to do those things. That's a big deal, but I don't think it's the most important deal. I see parents who pride themselves on teaching their children Bible stories, and I'll be the first to say, yay, that's great, I'm glad you're doing that, but I don't think that's the most important thing. I see parents who are great in academics and they want to make sure their kids do really, really well at school, or maybe they're great at sport and they want to make sure their kids do really, really well in sports, and those are important things for sure, but I don't think they're the most important things. What I want to talk to you about today, I think, are 5 of the most important things that any of us could ever learn to embrace. It is, to me, the understanding of a healthy life. And I think it's important for parents to embrace these things and pass them to their kids. But more than that, it's important for us to embrace them ourselves. Now, before I get into the meat of the message, I do want to say this. I think the most important thing a parent can give their children is a good picture of God. And I'm so glad that you are here, and I'm so glad that you are processing the things we are trying to share with you every Sunday, because it is a big responsibility to pass on to your children a good understanding of what God is like. And you have no idea the pain you can cause them if you miss that and you pass on to them a hurtful, vengeant, mean, misunderstood God that can sometimes cause great pain. So these are things that are positive that I think we can all embrace. I'm going to give you 5 of them. We're going to move quickly. The first is this. In life, you want to make sure you get this. In life, you need to learn to appreciate your unique design. If I was starting all over with my kids, I would want them to understand you have a unique design, and it's important to learn to appreciate who you are. It means being authentic, and so many of us struggle with that. Authenticity means knowing who you are. It means listening to your inner voice and being free to choose your own path in this life. Sometimes we get confused in our ideas about true spirituality. We think following God means that we have to become little robots following this cosmic deity into becoming just like all of these other little robots. And that is a million miles from the truth. And I don't know if you know this or not, but the Village, you won't hear that most places. That you are unique, that God has created you unique, and you discovering that unique part of you and following that is one of the keys to life. If sports is a big part of who you are at your core, pursue sports, but if it's not, don't pursue sports. Find that spot, find that. Are you an artist? Are you a creative type? Are you a writer? Are you how are you wired? Become that. Proverbs 22:6 says this, start children off on the way they should go, and even when they are old, they will not turn from it. Now, my way I first learned this verse, it was pretty much if you raise a kid in church, he may get away from church for a while, but he'll come back. Can I tell you that's a million miles from what that means? This means help your children discover the way they should go, how they are uniquely wired. And when they are old, they won't depart from it. That will be their life. And you will be doing great parenting when you do that. As adults, we need to ruthlessly evaluate to make sure we're living according to how we're wired. If we follow our hearts and we're true to ourselves, we have to make choices. And one of the big choices we have to make is we are going to be awake in this life. So many people sleepwalk through their life, and they're no more thinking about how they are wired. They're no more thinking about the unique ways God has put them together. They are sleepwalking, and you can't do that. Socrates said this, the unexamined life is not worth living, and that's true. There's another way to phrase it. Unless you are continually examining your life to make sure it's on target, there's a very good chance you're going to wind up living somebody else's life. Which means coming to the end of your life and realizing you followed a path that was not your path. Now, I know I did that in my 20s. I wanted to be a big church pastor. That's what I wanted to be. And I had church heroes. And I just tried to imitate them because I wanted to be them. Because I didn't know who I was. And it took a long time of going down that path to realize that's not who I am. Who I am is different. But God created me, and that's the path I need to be on. Many people live completely unreflective lives, simply experiencing but rarely asking how they might move closer to how they are uniquely wired. Some people know what their passion is, but they feel because of gender, they can't pursue it. Now, I want to get off the sermon for just a minute, and I want to talk to you about something. I have known women who, because of the way they were raised in church, felt they could not do things they felt God calling them to do because it was in disagreement with how the church taught women could be used. You follow me? And I want you ladies to know, we always talk about LGBT, trying to help LGBT people to know that, hey, God loves you and God has a plan for you and you don't have to conform and become anything else. I want you ladies to know it is a misunderstanding of Scripture that has caused people to try to keep you down. A total misunderstanding of Scripture. In fact, I want to take just a quick little detour and then we're going to get back to the message, but I just feel like today I need to share some things with you that maybe will be helpful to you, because just like we talk about how fundamentalism has tried to hurt, for example, the LGBT community, well, far before that, fundamentalism set about to try to hold women down. They were the ones fighting, churches fighting to keep you from voting, from having any kind of a say in anything, because fundamentalism always wants to go back to a medieval understanding of all things. And that's not the message of Jesus. Never been the message of Jesus. I read a book several years ago. It was a book where children were writing letters to God. A little girl wrote this letter: "Dear God, are boys better than girls? I know you are one, but please try to be fair." Isn't that something? Because you're a little boy, God, or you're a boy, God, I want you to be fair. Let me give you quickly an overview of how God thinks of women, all right? Genesis chapter 1, verses 27, 28. This is the creation passage. We've talked about it a lot. So God created mankind in his own image. In the image of God, he created them, male and female, he created them. There was no division. They were created in the image of God. God blessed them and he said to them, male and female, be fruitful, increase in number, fill the earth and subdue it. Rule over the fish in the sea and the birds in the sky and over every living creature that moves on the ground. The text is very careful to say God gives the mandate to rule over the earth to both men and women, equal. There's no hint in this text of any division of responsibilities. He does not say man is to have dominion or authority over the woman. They are both to have dominion over the earth. Now, sometimes people argue because the man was made first and the woman was made second, maybe that implies that man is superior because he was made first. Well, animals were made before man, so we don't want to use that argument, do we? And then if you go reverse, you can say, well, maybe it's just in climbing order. Then it's like, okay, the animals were made, and then God did it better and made the man. And then, oh, we don't want to go down that road. We just want to say everybody is the same. The truth is there's no superiority one way or the other. Man and woman, equally made in the image of God, they share together dominion over creation. Then, we've talked about this so much, the fall happens. In other words, we all fall. We all get twisted up in our thinking. We all think God is not for us, he's against us. And that leads to shame and alienation. We've talked about that. So it gets all twisted. Suddenly, man rules over the woman because we're bigger, we're stronger. That's what we do. But through the Old Testament, you see women still have dynamic places of leadership in God's economy. There's an example of Deborah. She's listed in the Judges. She is one of the judges with Gideon and Samson. Deborah is a judge. Other examples in the Old Testament, Miriam, Moses' sister, is called a prophet in the book of Exodus, chapter 15. Then we get to the New Testament and things really begin to move when it comes to God's use of women. Now, this is unheard of in the ancient world. This is not happening, and yet it's happening in our New Testament. One of the most striking features of Jesus' ministry is Jesus is unique among rabbis in his relationship with women. They are a part of his posse. They travel with him. They're a part of his inner circle. He loves them. They even support him. There's a text in Luke chapter 8 which talks about the people that were bankrolling his ministry were a group of women. It's unheard of. And this is against a backdrop of a world that was very anti-women and a religion that had become very anti-women. One ancient rabbinic saying was it would be better for the Torah, that's the book of the law, to be burned than to be taught to a woman. Here was a common prayer prayed in the first century. Blessed art thou, O God, who did not make me a woman. That was like one of the big prayers you could pray. I'm so glad I'm not a woman. Yet Jesus traveled with women, Luke chapter 8. They supported his ministry. Big deal. A very, very big deal. And then you see the birth of the church in Acts chapter 2. And Simon Peter preaches a famous sermon. And he quotes from Joel, one of the prophets, that says, in the latter days I'll pour out my spirit on all flesh, and my sons and daughters will prophesy. Men and women equal. And then there's this amazing text in Galatians 3. But before we look at it, I want to set it up just a little bit. Here's a little background. There was an ancient rabbinic saying, rabbis would say this, blessed art thou, O God, for you did not make me a Gentile, you did not make me a slave, and you did not make me a woman. That was a big deal. Thank you, God, you did not make me a Gentile, you did not make me a slave, you did not make me a woman. The Apostle Paul had been a rabbi. He had learned that. That was the way he was indoctrinated. Women way down the list of importance and certainly not equal to a man. But then Paul gets Christ in his life. And in Galatians chapter 3, he writes one of the most amazing sentences ever penned. He says, in Christ, there is neither Jew nor Gentile. There is neither slave nor free, nor is there male or female. For you are all one in Christ Jesus. These are some of the most incredible words ever written. In fact, Thomas Cahill, who's an American scholar and writer, says that this is the first expression of egalitarianism in the history of human literature. Let me say that again. It is the first expression of egalitarianism in the history of human literature. And egalitarianism simply means that all people are equal and they deserve equal rights and equal opportunity. That has never been penned before the Apostle Paul said, in Christ, there is neither male nor female, slave nor free, Jew nor Gentile. My point is this: in the beginning, God's plan, man and woman equal. The fall screwed it all up. In Christ, it is doing it the way God originally intended it to be done. And ladies, you are equipped to do whatever God has called you to do. Whatever he has challenged you to do, whatever you feel bubbling up in your heart, if it's to stand behind a desk like this and teach, then do it. If it's to be a leader in some capacity, but you think nobody will listen to me because I'm a woman, do it. However God uniquely wired you, you do it. And in this church, you will always find a place because we believe that's God's way. We believe it's very, very important. The word sin we talk about sometimes comes from an old English word, and it means in archery to miss the mark. You're shooting for a bullseye and you just miss the mark. Well, can I tell you the biggest sin you can commit in this life, and not from a damning point of view, but just to miss the mark? If you miss the mark on being who God created you to be, you've really missed the mark. That's why Wordsworth, the great English poet, could write this in his prelude. He must become a poet, else he would be sinning greatly. He knew he was wired to be a poet, and if he missed that, he would be sinning greatly. Well, I will tell you this, if you want to know if you're doing what you were created to do, here's my test. If at the end of the day I have been doing things that really are the way I'm wired, I'm tired, but it's a good tired. You know that feeling? It's a good tired. It's like, man, I'm so exhausted, but I feel so good. But if I'm doing something that's outside of how I'm wired to do, I'm tired and it's a bad tired. Y'all know that tired? It's like, God, this sucked the life out of me. I hated this. So I'm not asking you to quit your job tomorrow. That's not what this is about. What this is about is begin to make incremental little changes to do those things that you are uniquely created to do. And that's one of the keys we want to pass on to our kids. That's the way we need to encourage them to live the best life. Number two, in life, you got to learn to leave it all on the field. In life, you got to learn to leave it all on the field. Now, I struggled with whether I could use this metaphor or not, but I know that you'll get this. It's a sports metaphor. Maybe you've heard it. It was a big part of how I was raised. When you say leave it all on the field, that's what coaches would say to us when they would say, fellas, we're going to have 60 minutes of play. We need to go out there and we need to give everything we've got. We don't need to hold back. At the end of those 60 minutes, you want to be able to look in the mirror and you want to be able to know you left it all on the field. In other words, don't hold back. Don't hold back energy and don't hold back things you could have done. And then at the end of the game, think, man, I wish I had done more. That's not going to be the feeling you want. You want to be able to look in the mirror and say, you know what? I gave it every ounce of energy I have. Now, you say, Ray, did you do that when you played sports? Well, maybe once or twice. I honestly felt like I did that, but it's a different feeling when you felt like you did it. When you said, my goodness, I did it. I gave everything. But only once or twice did I feel like I ever did that. Most of the time, you held back some reserves. I don't know why, but you did. In life, it is important to realize, leave it all on the field. Live this life to the fullest. What are you saving the energy for? Harriet Beecher Stowe, who wrote Uncle Tom's Cabin, she said this, the bitterest tears shed over the graves are for words left unsaid and deeds left undone. I have learned, I don't think death is what we fear most. I think when we have lived life fully and we've done what we've hoped to do, we can accept death with grace. Here's what we fear most. We fear coming to the end of our lives with the final words on our lips being, I wish I had done something that I didn't do. We want to teach our kids, and we want to embrace it ourselves, live life to the fullest. Squeeze every ounce out of the day. What are you saving it up for? James 4:14 says this, why? You don't even know what will happen tomorrow. What is your life? You're a mist that appears for a little while and it vanishes. Embrace the idea of leaving it all on the field. Now, some of you have noticed my wife's not here today. She's not here because her 86-year-old mom, Joyce Shadinger, had her second hip replacement this past week. Now, I've talked about Joyce a lot. I just want to tell you, she is the single most amazing person I have ever met in my life. 6 years ago, she had a hip replacement, and we helped her rehabilitate, and on like the 14th day, we took her to a birthday party at DeKalb Mall in a wheelchair. That's how we did it 6 years ago. Now she's 6 years older. They took her hip out on Wednesday, put a replacement hip in on Wednesday. Thursday, she walked into my house with a cane leaning on my shoulder, but climbed upstairs and walked into my house. I don't know of a stronger person. And you know why? She hadn't always been that way, but she is determined to live every day to the fullest. This is an interruption to her. She has a schedule, she has people to see, and she's got things to do, and she's just trying to rehab her leg as best she can, as strong. Give it up for her. She deserves, I'm telling you, I've never seen anything like it. It is unbelievable. She's now at our house, and she has a walker, and we have a little path that you can walk inside our house. It's a pretty good sized path, and she takes laps all day. And she'll stop and talk to me if I'm studying or reading or whatever. She'll stop and talk, and then she just keeps walking all day. She does her exercises before she gets out of the bed because she has things to do. She's told me, she said, Ray, when I die, that's when I can rest. I don't want to rest now. I want to live every day to the fullest. She is a great example of leaving it on the field. Listen, my prayer has become, let me grow old like Joyce. Let me grow old like Joyce. I see some of you, and your plan has been, as soon as I can, I'm going to sit in my chair, put my feet up, and just coast. Well, listen, that's one step away from the grave. You understand that is one step away from the grave. Don't you want to go out squeezing every ounce of life out you can, just doing everything you can? If you can do it, do it. And I think that's just important. It's something that means a lot to me, and I'm trying to make that my mantra, and I hope you will too. Third thing, and I just want to get this in my heart. I want to make sure that this is the way I'm living. We need to pass this down to our children. We want to make sure that we're living it ourselves. In life, you need to become love. With every passing year, you should become more loving in every way until people say, he has become love. He is love. He is just love. I don't think parents talk about this enough. If your child grows up and makes millions of dollars, but he doesn't have love, he's missed out on what is most important. Leo Buscaglia, very famous philosopher, speaker, said this: love is life. And if you miss love, you miss life. And that's true. Another great quote, the Dalai Lama said this: if you want others to be happy, I love this quote, if you want others to be happy, practice compassion. If you want to be happy, practice compassion. It's the same. Practice compassion. Learn love. Learn how to love. Love is a choice. And it's important. As we open our hearts up to God, we learn to love him. We choose to love him. His love pours into us and then kind of just comes right out of us back to him. It's a beautiful thing. We choose, after we learn to love him, we choose to love ourselves. And that's important. It's a hard one, especially when it's beat into our heads that we're vile or we're worthy of hell and damnation. And that's the way many of us grew up. You know, we sing a song, Amazing Grace. It's a great song. Amazing Grace, how sweet the sound that saved a wretch like me. Some of us, that's the only image that we ever have ourselves, is that we're a wretch. Listen, John Newton traded slaves for most of his life. He penned those words. He was saying, you know what? I realized I was a wretch when I was doing that. It doesn't mean that you're a wretch. You were created in the image of God. Imago Dei. You were created in God's image. That is a big deal. They say human beings have between 45,000 and 55,000 thoughts per day, and most of our self-talk is benign. It doesn't really matter, but some of it has a large effect of how we see ourselves. If you're thinking you're a loser, or you're not lovable, or you're unattractive, or fat, or bald, or stupid, not a good parent, not a good person, then that's killing you. You got to learn to love God and love yourself. Richard Rohr, one of my favorite writers, he's a Franciscan priest, but he's brilliant in every way. He's a brilliant guy. I've had a chance to spend some time with him. He said recently he was with a neuroscientist who was telling him the latest research says that negative thoughts run through your mind like Velcro, while positive thoughts run through your mind like Teflon. In other words, a small negative thought sticks. And yet the most positive thought in the world goes right through and you can't even remember it the next day. He was sharing this because he was saying it's important for us when we see something lovely or beautiful or something happens in our heart that stirs us, you've got to freeze that thought for at least 15 seconds. You've got to freeze that thought for it to even remotely have a chance to stick. If you just think, oh, that's nice, you'll never remember it. My point is, we're working against our brains by loving ourselves, but it's very important. Then we choose to act with love toward those closest to us, our family and friends. Then we choose to become love in all of our interactions. And then maybe it's said of us one day, we have become love. We have become love. Here's a startling statistic to me. I read this week and blew my mind. A major university did a study that found in the average home, the ratio of negative to positive messages is 14-1 negative to positive. 14-1. For every one positive comment we make to a person in the family, we make almost 14 critical comments. A similar study showed that one of the most common elements in a long-term happy marriage was a 7-1 positive to negative ratio in communication. In happy marriages, there's 7-1 positive words being shared, and then in the average home, it's 14-1 negative to positive. I want to just pour love out, and I want people to say when I'm around him, I feel encouraged and I feel loved. 4, and we'll go quickly. You got to learn to live in the now. You've got to learn to live in the now. Jimmy, 20 years, was in a church called the Church of the Now, in the Now. Great, great title, I think. When I say live in the now, it means to be fully present in every moment of our lives. It means we don't focus on the past or the future, but we experience each moment with gratitude. We're very grateful for every moment we have. It means that we recognize that we have the power in each moment to choose contentment and happiness. It's an important deal. Now, I struggle here because in my life, I have always had something out there that I thought that would get me happy. Anybody else have that kind of a thought? It's crazy, but that was my thought. I remember thinking if I could just be a good football player, this is when I was in elementary school, I thought if when I go to junior high, if I could just be a good football player and start out in 7th grade and play 7th, 8th, and 9th grade, if I could do that, that would be it. And I did it. But that wasn't it. It was good, but it wasn't it. I remember in 8th grade when they said we're going to have elections for student council president, which will be the student council president in 9th grade. I remember thinking, I bet if I was student council president, that would be it. And so I got all my football friends to help me, and we put on a pretty high-tech campaign for way back then. Taught people this corny cheer, H2O apostrophe S, Waters, he's the best. And anyway, we won. I was a disaster as a president, so I was horrible. So it's not like that was any good, but it was like I thought that would be it, but it wasn't. It wasn't it. I remember when I was in high school, this girl in our school, is hot okay? I don't know if hot is like a good thing. Y'all get that. She is beautiful, gorgeous, hot. And I thought if I could go out with her, that would be it. And I got a date with her. And it wasn't it. It wasn't bad, but it wasn't it. Then I remember thinking at 17, I need to get married. That would be it. That wasn't it. Then I thought if I could just have kids, that would be it. That wasn't it. Sorry, Ethan. You're great, but that wasn't it. Then I thought maybe a little success would be it, and that wasn't it. Maybe a house and a car, that wasn't it. Maybe if I could publish a book, I've always wanted to be an author. I did that, that wasn't it. What if I could travel? No, that wasn't it. It's only been the last few years that I have discovered what it is, and it is living each day, not worrying about tomorrow or lamenting yesterday, but just celebrating right now. It's not some elusive something out there, it is right now. Being aware of the very breath that I breathe, being conscious of the beauty that's around me, meeting people and looking deeply into their eyes, being present right here and right now and recognizing this moment is divine. This is the miracle. We always want a miracle. Do you know it's a miracle right now? This is a miracle right now. It's a big, important thing to remember. Let me give you the last one. Important to me in life that we learn to be a giver more than a taker. It's important in this life that we learn to be a giver more than a taker. We have families at our church. One family in particular, they did a camp several years ago for children that were battered and abused. And it spoke to them so much, they have made that their family vacation every year. They go for 1 week and they work this camp for underprivileged, abused children. That's a week of their vacation. And it's now mom and dad who are now grandparents, they're my age, the grandparents, and their children who are now in their 30s, they all work this camp together. I was at a Safe House gala a couple of weeks ago with Joe, and they awarded 2 families a special recognition for their service. These are 2 families that have just decided the 4th Monday night of every month, that's what their family's going to do. They're going to go at the Safe House and they're going to feed the unfortunate, feed the ones who are living on the streets. They're going to help provide a service for them. And I saw these little boys standing on the platform getting recognized that night. They were like 8, 9, 10 years old. And I thought these parents are doing it so right. They are teaching them, be a giver more than a taker. Be a giver more than a taker. Martin Luther King Jr. said it like this: an individual has not started living until he can rise above the narrow confines of his individualistic concerns to the broader concerns of all of humanity. Wow, that's a mouthful. That's a beautiful thing. I've done so many funerals, and it's so sad when you have a funeral and nobody comes because the person was self-focused and never connected ever outside of themselves. Here's a great paradox. The 2 great assignments in this life are discovering yourself and then losing yourself. Is that crazy? Discovering how God has wired you and then seeing yourself in a larger world that you can give of yourself to serve and make it better. And yet that's what we're called to do. And outside of those two things, there is no happiness. There is no genuine joy. So it's Mother's Day. And these are 5 things that I think are critical to living the best life possible. And if you're a mom, pass them on to your kids. If you're not, get them here. Get them here. Make it a part of you. These are all things that God wants for each of us. Would you bow your heads, please?